Hereby call this meeting of the Londonderry Heritage Commission to order. It's 14th day of December 2023. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes from our prior meeting. I was looking them over, they look pretty good to me.
I wasn't at the meeting, but they really were, I thought, good, because it was like I was there, so.
Yeah, good notes.
I only saw, well, I did see it on cable, review it.
If I could have a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second. And seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
And
The ayes have it.
I'll
Minutes are approved.
I'll abstain. And we do have a quorum, so we're good to go.
Okay, we have one application tonight. It's a conceptual discussion of a mixed-use development including residential multifamily units, retail, a daycare, and phased construction of multiple manufacturing buildings in the Industrial 1 and Industrial 2 districts at 6 Akira Way, map 28, lot 31-6, 104 Grenier Field Road, map 17, lot 2, 5 Kitty Hawk Landing, map 17, lot 5-5, 11 Akira Way, map 28, lot 31-36. Londonderry Holdings LLC, owner and applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Dick Anagnost. I'm one of the co-developers of the what will ultimately be known as the Village on Technology Hill, which is a PUD application that we will be filing that includes all of those elements that you just eloquently read into the record. Thank you for seeing us tonight. I also have with me to my right Nick Golan from TF Moran, representing our engineer. Behind him is Tony Nazaka from Stone River, who you will also be hearing from, and also Tyler Walsh, another member of our development team. Londonderry Holdings LLC is owned by Grace and Ken Zielinski, longtime business owners within the town of Londonderry. You might know them better by the company called Insight Technologies that was out on Harvey Road. They were the founders and developers of that. Ultimately, I was the original developer of Evans Technology Park. They, in turn, with their building there, took over the balance of Evans Technology Park and built out what you see there today. Ultimately, they became L3 Harris, and since then they have gone out on their own and started new companies. They're my co-developers and the owners of the property. I myself have had a long history with Londonderry. I developed Buttrick Road Medical Center, Elliott Hospital, EFI on the airport, amongst another number of other projects, but just by way of background, I'm very familiar with the town also. So the Village at Technology Hill is going to be a PUD application. It's going to include multi-uses that all support and are symbiotic one with another, that include housing, industrial development, R&D, childcare, and a small commercial component that would be more like a general store, local salon, something supported by the development itself and the other businesses that are in our direct proximity, like L3 Harris, whoever takes over the old wire belt. Those businesses are direct in proximity to us, so we need a small commercial component to serve coffee, lunch, that type of thing, things that they might need. This is a live, work, play type of a project. We expect that it'll be very walkable. We expect that the housing will be occupied by a significant number of employees. But above all, we're a major job generator. And based on our economic study that we'll be supplying to the planning board, we'll be a major taxpayer as well. And we're extremely tax positive in that respect. So I've said enough. I'd rather turn it over to the people of the experts. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Nick so he can tell you a little bit about the site.
Thank you very much, Dick. So, let's get ourselves located a little bit, just as far as overall site location. This is located east of the airport, west of Route 28, penciled in right between Akira Way and Kitty Hawk Landing. The existing site itself has its nuances. There's a fair amount of topographical grade change. We have some areas of wet, the vast majority of which we've had the ability to avoid. One of the great elements of this site, though, is it comes ready for development. All the utilities that we need are either already on the property or immediately adjacent at the frontage roads, water, sewer, electric, gas, all right there for our use and expansion. Talking a little bit about the elements of the project, Dick spoke to it already. I'll expand on that a little bit. We have 3 areas we've defined, village areas. So Village Area 1, Village Area 2, and Village Area 3. Village Area 1 is really the entrance to our project. So as we come off of Akira Way, we have our neighborhood retail located to my left on the screen, but to be to your right as you pull in. The childcare immediately to your left provides great functionality as far as traveling into the site, potential for drop-off, and whether you're going to your home or office, provides just a great commonality there. As we work our way southerly into the property, we will have a bridge crossing. There's a wetland stream there that has some higher functions and characteristics. We wanted to make sure we were being environmentally sensitive to that area. And it also provides just a great gateway experience as you enter into the overall property. So as you come through that main entrance, right at really the split, you'll have your community building and 9 other residential structures. Those will be multifamily, 4-story buildings with approximately 439 units spread across those 9 buildings. One of the real nice features within that Village Area 2, as we've defined it, is great opportunities for various types of open space. We have our active open space in the context of our community building, basketball court, dog park, passive open space, which really is this great village green that's created between these residential structures, which also provides, to Dick's point, just great connectivity, great walkability, the ability to move throughout this complex just in a very smooth and mannered way. And then 3, our conservation open space. This graphic that we have up, I think, shows it very well. We've done a nice job with balancing our impervious footprint to providing suitable buffers for the project area itself and preserving as much of that existing vegetation as really as possible. Our 3rd distinct village area, but also sited in a manner which provides that walkability, is really the industrial or manufacturing area. These are those high-tech jobs that Dick spoke of. Those are located immediately to the east. There is a 150,000 some odd square foot building, which has the opportunity to expand to nearly 230 square feet. And then 2 other manufacturing structures, one in the neighborhood of 60,000 square feet and another in the neighborhood of 20,000 square feet. The final structure that's within that village area, Village Area 3, is the foundation building, which would provide the Selinsky's an opportunity to really have the home office of sorts for their philanthropic opportunities. Overall, open space is a huge element of this, trying to conserve what environmental resources we can, providing appropriate landscape and buffers. Ideas, this is going to be the use of native plantings or improved varieties. And by that I mean really our traditional native varieties, shagbark, hickory, American beech, basswood, just a really more traditional native feel, as well as the opportunity to provide other shrubs such as lilacs or otherwise that would complement this. They do need to be obviously of sturdy stock, so we're looking at zone 5B or better as far as the American standards for nursery stock. And the idea is that landscaping, although not fully designed, the intent is that it's going to help break up our spaces. As I mentioned in the opening, there is some topographical change here, so it gives us the opportunity to use not only the topography, but the landscaping to really provide a nice natural blend between these areas while still making it walkable and providing that interconnectivity that we're looking for. The last site-related item and I'll speak to is really site lighting. Obviously, it's going to meet the town needs, dark sky compliant. Intent being these will be primarily pole-mounted fixtures with the exceptions of the immediate vicinity of our buildings where you may see some wall plaque type lighting. I don't want to get too long-winded about the site. I'll introduce the star of our show, which is really to do with our buildings. If Tony, you'd like to take my seat, I will step back and give you the mic.
Is it okay if I give out updated?
They can just confirm it with the chair.
Yes,
please. The original, I mean, it's not drastically changed, but there's some, if you don't mind, we can get these back.
Sure.
So is that set paper?
Just so I'm clear on the layout, the easternmost building in that first picture is the existing L3 Harris building, correct?
No, actually, if you
That's going to
look,
be a whole new,
so if you look at the aerial we have now, it's, this is north-south. So it's sort of northwest corner, up in that area, just off screen. Yep.
gotcha.
So I just want to follow up, Nick, and go over the architectural design. This aerial here is, just to give you the layout, sorry, Nick, that I didn't have that up before, but to really show where the buildings are in relation to the site. As Nick said, they're distinct areas. The sort of first one's the general retail building and the childcare. The second area is the community building and the village green and the village residential area. And then the third being the commercial space with the foundation building, the Envision buildings, and the On Point building. To sort of piggyback on the site a little bit, we just want to emphasize that there's sort of like a main street in this project, and we're really trying to hone in on that village feel. So the main street actually connects the main entry from Akira Way down to Kitty Hawk Landing. As far as the architectural treatment goes, I just want to preface that there was some core tenets that we were trying to get to with this project. Dick said, live, work, play. One of the owners is more of a work, live, and play sort of comes secondary. So the main core tenet for this project was really to create jobs. Secondary is the housing to support those jobs, and he's very passionate about that. Third, from our standpoint, and to help produce a good product, is a sense of community and promoting growth within the town of Londonderry. We're trying to get all these things so in the hopes of keeping up with what Londonderry wants to see and sort of that traditional New England village feel. So that's just a preface on how we got where we're at. Do I just press forward on
I
this?
think you should be able to.
So here's just a main entry view into the Akira Way. It just kind of gives you a sense of the scale of the project, that it's not overwhelming. One thing missing from this rendering would be sort of off in the distance, in that there will be sort of like a wooden bridge that goes over a wetland in this area. And we know this will sort of be the primary entrance of the village. This is where most residents will enter and exit. Most visitors will enter and exit. It's flanked by the retail building and the childcare. The secondary entry or exit is more into the commercial space. So this view, you're sort of seeing what we call phase one of Envision, and then sort of that in the distance in that corner is the later phases of Envision. That's sort of like the gem of the site. So kind of going back to how we got to where we were is, we kind of thought, like, what makes a New England village? How do you design a New England village? How do we look to the Heritage Commission? How do we look to the lookbook and kind of continue that? And what kept coming up in our design process was we kept looking at the old mill towns. You know, you have your mill buildings. And it kind of followed our core tenets of those are your jobs. The mill building was created. The housing was in close proximity. People worked in the mill buildings, and it created a community. All those were really important in our architectural design and creating a nice project. And we felt, how can we kind of use that conceptually in this program? So what we decided to do was sort of trying to reinvent what a traditional New England mill town might be. So we're trying to say this is sort of a contemporary New England village. We're not creating textiles here or shoes or jobs that are going to go by the wayside in 20 years. This is high-tech. These are high-tech industrial jobs that are going to be around for a long time. So architecturally, we kind of, using that context, we split this architecturally into two areas. It's the sort of your community and residential spaces, and then your commercial spaces, almost like your community housing and your mill building area. First here, we have your general store. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to keep that traditional feel while adding some modern and contemporary flair to it, keeping it fresh and modern, but not losing, that New England feel. This, for example, for your general store, might be a salon. We envision something like maybe, there's no tenants yet, but something like your Common Man, where it's a full service, drinks and sandwiches and desserts. They're always very busy. But then we adorn this with, little modern elements of those overhangs, more glass. We envision people kind of hanging out up front, having a patio where you can eat lunch and then walk back to work. We feel this would be a very sort of engaging area right at the entry of the site. Your childcare, similar, architecturally similar. It's a simple design, but it's traditional with a little bit of a modern flair. You have a large gable entry with an overhang that sort of draws your drop-off area. It's right at the front of the site, right at your entryway, where parents are either, if they're leaving the village or entering the village, that's where you drop off your kids. But then again, you have sort of some notions and some hints of a little modernity of flat overhangs, large windows for the classrooms. Our community building, if you recall from that overhead, this is one of the first buildings you will see as you cross the bridge and enter the site. Again, very simple. It's a gable form, but it's not so simple that it's plain and doesn't bring anything to the village. Colors, I meant to say, as we were going through, we're trying to use a traditional color palette that's New England, that says New England. Some of these colors aren't fully decided yet. We haven't quite got there. But again, when you speak to the sort of contemporary nature of this, one of the biggest things here is that kind of glass corner there. That is the community room that sort of engages the community, and it's pointed right towards the village green purposefully, that people can have parties there, they can hang out there. In front of this area, you'll be able to have little flea markets, yard sales, gatherings. It's really, again, to sort of enhance that community aspect. And finally, this is a typical residential building. I say typical because we have 3 types. They're all similar, just some are longer than the others. But it's a very efficient layout. Every unit has a balcony, but we use sort of a combination of modern form to bring the scale down. We didn't do a full gable roof on this one. 2 reasons, scale, and I don't know if you realize in the aerial, there's a lot of purple on the roofs. Every flat roof in this project is utilizing solar. That's one of the aspects of it being technological. But then you can clearly tell in this rendering where the entry is. It's that gable, that green gable, and each building it won't be just like a cookie cutter of each. They're different sizes, and they'll be different colors, which again sort of makes a little more powerful that notion of a village feel. I think I missed one. Okay. That's my notes here. Commercial buildings. This is where we sort of go towards how we're redefining the sort of what your modern mill building is in a way. Again, these aren't mill buildings, they're high-tech industrial. But the mill building wasn't always contextually part of a town. At one point, it was made that context. It became synonymous with a mill town. The size of it, the materials that were available, and that's what we're trying to redefine here. We're trying to sort of show a high-tech mill area, if you will. The concept behind these is that there's 4 different buildings, but they are very similar in shape and certain details and glass and materiality. They're not the same commercial building over and over, but they all sort of read as one. This one is the 18,000 square foot On Point building, so it's a 9,000 square foot footprint. And this is one of the first ones you see as you come in the Kitty Hawk entry. You'll see, again, we use a good amount of glass, mainly for the workers. Not skimping on some of the nicer details, this big glass corner, which is where their break area and meeting rooms would be on the first and second floor. This would be phase one of Envision. And again, Envision being a high-tech manufacturing. This is a smaller building compared to phase 2 and 3. And this is solely so they can grow into those other buildings, and then they would potentially move out, and then another high-tech industry would come in this. Again, similar look, punch openings in the bottom, but you can sort of tell that they speak together while being different. And this is the phase 2/phase 3, which isn't shown, of the main Envision building. This is the primary company for this project. This is what the owner, this is his company. And again, this is sort of the jewel of the village. This is the main, if you will, mill building, going back to redefining what a traditional mill building is. People can walk to work here. They can walk to the general store, walk to work, walk home during lunch, visit their kid during lunch. It's really, again, it's that sense of community, it's that sense of proximity of what we're really going for.
So this is just really a walking community. Everything is all within walking distance and,
Yes,
oh,
Yes.
it's convenient.
yep. And, there'll be walking trails, there'll be bike trails. There's, and again, we're really trying to strengthen that idea of this is where you work, this is where you live, this is where you make friends, this is your community. It's not, and this is no offense to some of the other projects that are out there, Tuscan Village or Market in Maine, but a lot of those are based around going to stores and buying things. This is for middle-class America to solidify a job and good housing and to live their best life. Whether they have a full career at one of these jobs, which there are plenty of careers at these, or if they, move on in their life from here to somewhere else. And then finally, this is the Selinsky Foundation building. Again, this is sort of another little jewel of the overall village. It reads similar, but massing, it's very different. It's meant to be that way. The owner, again, Ken, they're very into philanthropy and donate a lot of money, and this would be their main headquarters and would make their staking ground in Londonderry. And it's going to be quite the building if this is built.
What is the purpose of this building?
The foundation building,
Yeah.
it's literally just a brick and mortar for them to do business for how they run their projects. And the Selinskys, you've probably heard the name. They're give to many hospitals, many different places. So it's really just a spot to have.
It's going to be kind of their like home office,
Correct.
basically.
Correct.
Gotcha.
And to sort of piggyback on that idea, it sort of strengthens this idea that like this is theirs. This project is theirs. This is going to be their baby. This isn't just buildings and owners are gonna come in, or owners from Massachusetts are covering. This is for him. This is his sort of his legacy project, if you will. And then again, I think just pulling these images together side by side, your sort of community buildings, they all read, we feel, very well together. They all read very New England Village-like. And then your commercial, industrial buildings, whatever you want to call them, again, while they're not the same, they all read very similar, and they'll all be sort of high-tech manufacturing based. And then just to speak again to the site and how we strengthen that idea of community, Like Nick said, we're going to have dog parks. We're going to have athletic areas. There'll be walking trails. I have the luxury of, I live quarter mile away, not even 3 blocks away from a school that has a park, and I always get to see people with dogs and talk to them. And a lot of residential places that, just pop up don't have this. And we're hoping to provide an organic community as people move in here, where you can go walk your dog and meet your neighbors and talk to them and talk about work and gripe about your boss and what have you. Again, just a shot of potential basketball court. Then these are all sort of surrounding the Village Green area. And then this would just be, like, the trees aren't going to be there right when we buy this, but over time, this is a shot of the main Village Green. And this is something you don't typically see when you see these big developments, is a large communal green space. Could we have got more housing units there? Sure. But that wasn't our intention. Our intention was to create a community that people want to come and live and work in Londonderry. Obligatory last rendering, 'tis the season, so that's another shot in looking at the community building, but happy to take any questions or comments or concerns.
Actually, Mr. Chair, if I may? Sure. I kind of like to bring the presentation all together. First, I'd like to give you a mental picture of a village concept. So Manchester, as Tony pointed out, is a village concept. That's how it started. The mill buildings were built first, and the support buildings were built around them, and then the residential came around them. And if you look at 3 concentric circles, that's kind of what we have here. So the village concept is old, but it's new. Whenever you can group symbiotic uses together, the residents provide the labor, the industry provides the jobs, and the rest of the ancillary services are for convenience. That's what a village concept essentially embodies. And Londonderry, believe it or not, started as a village concept. It started around the old Annis Grain and Lumber Mill, which is located in the north end right near this project. It's still known as the village. So many people were employed in the mill that all of a sudden a general store grew up around it, a post office grew up around it, and that's where the original housing in Londonderry began. So the concept of the village that we're envisioning here is essentially the roots of Londonderry and how it began. Another mental picture I'd like you to sort of vision, because we unfortunately don't have a picture unless we do Nick the bridge. So when you first enter off of Kira Way, it'll be unlike most projects because you'll be entering up over a bridge into a large, well-landscaped area, and then the first 2 buildings you'll see are the 2 that Tony pointed out with the New England field before you even enter into the development. And then the Central Park, as Tony, I'd like to reiterate, is a key feature to the entire project. All of the residential and, if you see it to our north, the industry is all centered around a big Central Park. Okay, Central Park in New York, Boston Common in Boston. That's how originally those cities were designed. We're designing our village to sort of emulate that vision. It's hard to show in a 2-dimensional situation, but we have elevation changes, we have grade changes everywhere, we have ledge outcroppings, we have all kinds of things that we'll be taking advantage of to help landscape the site, in addition to being very well landscaped and surrounded by massive amounts of trees. When you walk into it, it's going to feel like you're walking into a major park or a campus, almost like you consider a college campus where you walk in and you've got green space over here and green space over there for people to congregate. This is the same vision that we see for Technology Hill. And lastly, a very important point is, being a real estate developer, I've speculated a lot of developments in my time. This development will be built out, and it's essentially going to be owned by the same owners, and it's there to benefit the businesses that they're bringing to Londonderry. So not only are we the job creator, which is the key important fact, we're the taxpayer, we're the managers, we're the developers. Our employees will be taking advantage of the housing. Our employees will be taking advantage of the other services on site, which we know are in high demand and short supply, like the childcare. What we're trying to do is create a concept in which not only can you live, work, play, but we'll be able to attract the talent and the employees that we need, the quality employees we need for a high-tech R&D manufacturing facility. So that being said, I'd like to open it up to any questions that the board might have, Mr. Chair.
First of all, I want to thank you guys for a well-thought-out presentation. I can see you put a lot of thought and time into this. A little bit of rehearsal even, maybe. But,
Oh, and I did want to preface that we're obviously open to questions, criticisms, but I did mean to close that this has been about a year and a half worth of design between all the designs we've went through, just civilly with Nick, about 5,000-ish iterations to how the architecture works harmoniously with the site, and we're on now, 8, 9, and then not only knowing what town's going to appreciate and want to bring to their town, but what the owner would like to see. So I just wanted to toss it in there real quick.
Sure. I personally, looking at some of the architecture and stuff, I think it looks amazing. The foundation building in particular, it's a very nice building. The curved architecture, the stone facade out front. It's a really nice addition, I think, to our town. A lot of the other buildings look pretty much in line with the other type of large residential buildings that we've been putting in town recently, specifically the ones that we've put down in the
What is the multifamily Woodmont Commons.
Woodmont. Thank you.
But also Gene Gagnon's project with the townhouses down by Exit 5.
Yep.
I mean, there are two different things, two different classes and everything of basically apartments. But, it's, part of it. I can see some diffsimilarities here with Woodmont, which is positive.
Yep.
Because we created the PUD probably being involved out of about the 97 master plan. And the thing is, our current zoning at that time, we could not create the traditional New England village. And that had kind of become the goal. And eventually it evolved into the PUD ordinance that we have, which is to create a village. So, it's just a work, live, play type of situation. Your village on Technology Hill kind of reminds me of a college campus. It has more of a homey, touchy-feely about it because some of it is the closeness. Woodmont is a lot of acreage there, and it's got a ways for its development, but it's, it's its own thing. It has its own character. This has its character also, and that's kind of I think, the strength of each one that did. There's similarities, but yet there's differences. And that's kind of what you want to work on is, your own uniqueness, and that is the technology. And technology, I think, is very important today because that's going to bring in eventually, the factories or to make a product. Making a product, you got money. It's stays with the people and the land that's there. So some of the architecture, overall I think it's good. I think once we get into some of the detail, there could be things that we like and don't like. And the thing is, when I look at it, if I don't like it, I got to find a reason why I don't like it. But usually you look at something, you like it, you don't go much further. You just,
It's an ambiguous field. It's an ambiguous field. Everybody sort of,
yeah.
you like some things, you don't. It's.
Yeah. The only thing with the apartments, the black fencing work on the balconies look a little, it doesn't quite fit in, It could be with the coloring of it, it could be the material. I don't think it's so much whether it's metal or not, but I think it was a little bit lighter. You want a contrast there anyway. I mean, some of the buildings look like they are manufacturing, which is, I think, part of it also.
Yep.
And I think you've got to rely upon the character, the atmosphere that you want to present.
Yeah, I was specifically thinking of the Woodmont buildings, you know, that some of the apartment buildings we've put up there look somewhat similar. Again, like you said, there's a lot of difference in character between these buildings and those, but, you know, same types of buildings, same types of feel. I like that you guys are using a lot of different design elements. You're breaking things up quite a bit. It looks like, you know, you've got clapboard in some sections and then maybe like a shake or
Correct.
something in
Yep.
other spots. Still with the stone base though to tie it all together, so lots of thought put into that. It looks good. The industrial buildings, you've got lots of concrete and glass, which is to be expected. But again, you know, you're kind of tying it together with all the buildings around it with the stone on the base, which looks really good. Overall, I like the concept so far. Like Art said, you know, as soon as we get into the details, I'm sure we'll find some small things that we'd like you to change,
Sure.
but overall, I like the
There'll be the
concept.
typical nitpicking, you know.
Sure.
it's,
And we've fully planned for planning board to have a lot of the details. I mean, this is still, the designs are there. It's still sort of a broad brush overview. Even the way we're rendering it, we're keeping it a little schematic designy. But
Ambiguous,
once we
yeah.
get to the planning board, it'll be a little more realistic and, you know, what color is this trim? Are the windows tan or are they
It's
black?
going to be an evolving thing. I mean, you've been through 5 iterations. I think you've
Right.
probably internalized it, and that's where some of that,
Sure.
you know, feeling
Sure.
in the design comes from. You know, giving it its own distinctive character.
Yep.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir?
Couple of comments. I like the concept, okay? I don't have any problem with the concept, but it's a little unusual, obviously, coming before us, in that it's the combination of residential and industrial. I think any of these, these are apartments we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay? Those buildings would normally be fine by themselves, as they are. We've seen buildings like that before. As a matter of fact, these would be distinguished compared to some of the ones we've looked at. And the same with the industrial buildings. If they were in some of our more industrially developed areas, I think they would be fine. When I put them together, and I realize you're trying to walk a line here between traditional New England, which we tend to favor here, and perhaps a more modern spin that you're looking for because of the technology angle of this. When you put them together, I'm suggesting maybe you consider softening some things. That it's a little, in my, again, understanding broad strokes, that we could have a little bit more of the traditional and maybe soften the modern a little bit. You know, things like, are flat roofs required for you to put solar in? Okay, I don't know the answer to that, I don't pretend to, but maybe you could do something on some of those roofs. The industrial buildings, I think, my wife's word, I won't claim this, she said they loom a little over the rest of the complex, okay? And is there a way to soften those up and give those a little bit more of the, this isn't just glass and concrete feel that the residential buildings have? I guess that would be my feedback on the thing. You know, what elements could you bring in, and maybe that's part of getting down to the detail, to make this a little bit more traditional, only because everything is all combined on a site that's so proximate, so.
If I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So, Mr. McMahon, Mahan?
No, Mick.
Sorry,
Have you all
Mr.
spell your
Mahan.
names later.
My apologies. I can barely see at my age that placard, so.
Okay, makes up for the fact that I can't hear, so go ahead.
One of the main components of the design was the fact that we are solar. Okay, and every one of the roofs that you see has solar on it. And we are also our own net user. So unlike most solar fields that are put up where the company or whatever is using a portion of it and selling it rest back to the grid, we can't generate enough for our own use. So we have solar panels just about everywhere on the top of every flat roof, including the residential, which, to my knowledge, would be one of the first times it's done in New Hampshire, where the residential is actually generating enough energy to cover its own uses. So part of our technology concept is the fact that we're going to be pretty much, not pretty much, it won't be 100%, but mostly self-sufficient with our own power needs in addition. So Tony's had the unsavory marching orders for me that he's got to make beautiful buildings, but I also need them to be functional for the purposes of generating electricity, so that based on our rates in New Hampshire and how much electricity we're going to be drawing here, it was very cost-effective for us to make the solar component literally the first component that we started with in the design.
So what you're telling me is the flat roofs are essential for your solar design?
Yeah, I don't even have enough flat. I've been yelling at them that the two buildings coming in at a New Englander, those need to be flat, and now they're coming up with a way to potentially put some panels on the back of the building because it faces the sun most of the day. So, you know, it's still a work in progress. We're trying to do exactly what you said. Walk that fine line between the technology functional, the modern technology look, and the essentially colonial style of the village. Not just Londonderry itself, but the whole village concepts that when they were originally conceived, they were all village-style, colonial-style concepts. So we're trying to mix all of those elements together and come up with something that everybody will be happy with.
Well, I'd suggest that maybe if we can't mess with the roof and understand it, I actually support the solar concept, so that's great. Maybe there are some other areas you can look at to soften the, you know. I knew you'd get the ball over to him. Very well done, by the way.
He's the one with all the talent.
And they won't look, again, as a broad brush stroke, once we get to more planning board imagery, they won't look quite as monochrome, as quite as like just concrete. Like when there's a little more detail, I think they'll shine a little bit more.
Yeah, I think, like you said, even with your renderings, you can tell these are meant to be a little bit ambiguous. The detail isn't super sharp, kind of like you're not sure yet exactly what you're going to do. So that's why I said before, the concept looks great, and I know we're really only here to discuss concept tonight. So I like it. I'm looking forward to seeing the detail. You know, what kind of materials you're going to use. Are you planning on doing all the siding in like vinyl, by the way? Do you know what you're doing for materials on the?
It's actually
residential?
mixed. There's stone siding, there's metal siding, there's vinyl siding, there's wood plank siding. I mean, it's a true mixture of all kinds of different material.
You're gonna use real
We
stone?
haven't landed yet on a final palette, but we're trying to distribute as much material that's native here to New England as we possibly can.
Sure. You gonna use real stone?
It's yet to
That's-
be
yeah.
determined. We have so much stone on that site.
Yeah, I see that.
and
There's a lot of
We're going to
stone.
be blasting even more stone than all of the stone that's just littering the site. So we're trying to figure out a way to use that as well.
That would be awesome.
Incorporate that in.
Yeah. Okay.
The virtual rock pile.
Yeah. It's gonna be a real rock pile.
What's the type of, excuse me, what's the type of apartment that you have there? Is that going to be condos or rentals?
No, they're all rentals, sir. They're so that we can offer housing packages to employees that we're going to need to attract to the site. And also with the amount of industry in North Londonderry and such a lack of housing in North Londonderry, we have L3 Harris there. We're going to be opening them up to those surrounding businesses as well.
Okay.
Okay, how many units of housing are there gonna be? Individual apartments?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch,
Individual apartments are there?
439, 439.
Okay, and what's the mixture of sizes?
Tyler, Tyler's looking that up for you.
What's the size of the capacity of, pardon me, what's the capacity of your community building?
As far as what it can be used
Well,
for?
I'm thinking if you're gonna have a meeting or something there
Correct.
for the residents.
Yep, so that main corner element, that you see in there is
Yeah.
about 30 by 30-ish square, maybe 30 by 40, so you can host a pretty big, I mean, that's
Right, but
almost the size, half the
you're not
size.
gonna hold everybody.
Correct,
Right.
yeah.
We'll hold that meeting outside in the Central Park.
Pardon?
We'll hold that meeting outside in Central Park.
Okay.
I do have the mix for you, sir. There are 199 one-bedroom units, 205 two-bedroom units, and 35 three-bedroom units.
Okay, thank you. Have you been before the Conservation Commission?
Nick?
Outside of the initial conceptual that we had with the planning board, this has really been our first stop. Wanted to make sure, as has been mentioned, that the feel of this was right for the community. What we are trying to create here very much is a community unto itself, and making sure that, in generalities, this is what the town of Londonderry was looking for. I think we've heard a lot of real good positives tonight in regards to that. We have been working behind the scenes relative to those other important items, wildlife habitat assessments, wetland delineations. There will be one minor wetland impact that's associated with the project. It's approximately 800 square feet. But otherwise, we've been able to avoid all potential vernal pools and all of those other more sensitive environmental characteristics. And one of our objectives that's been placed on us by the applicant is to find a way to make this as symbiotic as possible with nature. The idea that we are going to build in a park course, the idea that this is an interactive community, it's a walkable community, preserving as much conservation space as possible, and then again, as was mentioned, the passive space, the active space, and finding that appropriate blend. So conservation is one of our next stops, so they have an understanding of what we're trying to do and make sure that the manner in which we've limited our impervious footprint is consistent with what their expectations would be as well.
By way of just elaborating upon that, 800 square feet of wetlands impact on a project of this magnitude equates to almost nothing. So Ken and Grace have been very, very specific about making sure we don't damage any wetlands or get close to any or dredge and fill any or anything else. The 800 square feet is strictly for roadway, right, Nick?
It is. It's for the access in the southwest quadrant of the site. And it was actually the last part of the site that we did our delineation on. And it was an area that's not really even naturally occurring. It's a function of one of those very large rock piles and an impoundment that was created because of said rock piles. So we're hoping that that's a very smooth transition as far as a permit. But yeah, one of those goals, it's why in part you see a bridge entry into this project site, was in order to avoid those types of environmental impacts.
Are you gonna continue Kitty Hawk Landing Road all the way over to Akira?
Kitty Hawk Landing Road kind of ends where our project begins, and Akira kind of ends where our project begins, and our project acts as the connection between the two. It's all private within our own development. Okay, there are no public roads within our development. That's correct, right? Nick?
That's correct. This will all be private roads. And what we've done is try to balance the design of those roads to be commensurate with where they are within the development. Along that inner loop of the residential area, you're going to have smaller, more narrow roads because we don't want people driving fast in there. The curvature that we've created of those roadways also goes towards that. As you come off of Kitty Hawk Lane and head north, it's really creating that boulevard of sorts that's providing that demarcation between the manufacturing high-tech areas and the areas of the residential that are more so to the west. We can also achieve that separation with added landscaping as well as the topographical changes that are a part of this. That loop road heads north, take a left, and then you're heading right up to Akira Way. So it really does provide, a 28-foot wide boulevard-type design, whereas your other driveways that are associated with the development would be more narrower for that purpose.
You said all your roads are gonna be private roads.
That is correct, sir.
How does that affect school bus access?
Our intent is to have a covered school bus stop right at the entrance to the site. And given that we're predicating the site very much on a walkable community, it helps towards that advantage.
And that would be near the intersection of Akira Way. And also, that's where your child drop-off is for childcare. And also, if you needed a cup of coffee or an egg sandwich in the morning, that's where the general store is as well. So,
That connectivity again, that sense of community.
You will have access from Kitty Hawk Landing?
Yes,
That'll go into your private roads,
that is correct.
and that will be readily available by anybody, I guess. Okay. So that would be another access for, if you have a problem with Akira Way, you can get in there with emergency vehicles through a different direction.
Yeah, looking at a development of this size, that, those 7 parcels combined to be almost 110 acres, the accessibility from both the north and to the south was certainly one of the primary things that we evaluated early on, making sure that we have those multiple points of entry to the property.
And those issues will really be sorted at the planning board level?
Yep.
Through the site plan process?
And what's happening with regards to the treatment of the wetlands that are up there off of Akira, north of, I guess it's north of where you are, further up the hill? So that's a good piece of property there that's just wet.
That's right. It's going to be preserved as part of this development. One of the things we painstakingly have done, and you can see it a little bit in the layout of the site, is not only to avoid those wetlands, but also to provide them with suitable buffers. The location at which our bridge crossing is proposed is the narrowest section of that wetland, and really allows for, as that wetland starts to expand and become larger, that we'll be able to provide large vegetated areas that provide buffers to those locations. So I'm excited about it from the standpoint as a civil engineer, just trying to move all these puzzle pieces around and then still be able to preserve as much of the environment as possible. I'm really happy with where we've landed right now, but there's always some room for improvement as well.
Okay, thank you. All I have.
Do you guys have any tenants for any of the buildings yet? Do you have any idea?
we'll be occupying all of the buildings with Ken and Grace's businesses. Their home foundation will be occupying the pretty building that you pointed out, Mr. Chair. Their company, which is another offshoot of L3 Harris type R&D on development of optics. They have a lot of defense contracts already. Tyler is working there currently, and they'll be expanding that operation and bringing it here. So, as I pointed out, they're actually the job creator. And when we attract the talent, those will be the people occupying the housing. And as they occupy the housing, the workers and the people occupying the housing will be frequenting and utilizing the daycare and the small commercial area that we're putting in for convenience.
Understood.
Private roads, so is this a, what's the word, a gated community? Will the general public have access, for example, to the Central Park?
The intent is this is not a gated community. Although it is a private road, it'd be no difficult than the private road you would see with any other typical subdivision. Whereas in this case, we just have private roads, they're not subdivision roads. Is there the ability for the public to use some of these elements? I don't know that it's going to be signed specifically that says, residents only, but the intent is that this village is for the folks that are living there, the people that are working there. There's probably some more details to sort out relative to that end of it.
Have you forecast, based on perhaps the number of units that you've got, what the population of the village will be?
Well, at full build-out, Tyler, correct me if I'm wrong, we're 1,100 to 1,300 jobs, right? At full build-out? So we're 1,100 to 1,300 jobs at full build-out of Envision, which is the company that'll be occupying the buildings, and another smaller company that Ken owns, and there should be a machine shop there and a couple other things. But with that number of employees, I don't know, you're probably talking, if there's 200 one-bedrooms, there's 200. If there's 205 two-bedrooms, that's essentially 410, so that's 600, and three bedrooms, another 90, so 690 possibly, which is essentially half of the workforce that we would need in order to operate at full capacity.
And it looked at, when I looked at the layout, it looks like the parking is, for their cars are off in a far corner of this lot for the most part?
What we've tried to do with the parking for this is, it's a little bit more traditional when it comes to the manufacturing uses. You have a bit of a traditional parking lot that directly surrounds that building. With the residential parking, it's almost city style. It's, you're pulling in front of your apartment building. And we have located those parking spaces, instrumentally to the point that, all right, we know we have X number of units. We make sure we have X number of parking spaces that are within walkable distance to that building. So you don't have a traditional parking lot that you would have that you see in a lot of these other types of residential projects. So that allows us to reduce heat island effect, as well as a few other things. Really allows us to reduce that impervious footprint, because instead of creating another drive aisle, well, no, that's the access drive into the property, and then we can co-locate our parking directly adjacent to it. Still something we need to work through with the fire department, make sure that they're happy with those widths of roads relative to their outriggers or otherwise. But really provides a nice balance of limiting the impervious footprint of the site overall.
And I guess I'd ask you, where do you intend to put the pickleball court?
You have no idea how much time we have spent as a group actually talking about that. It has its pros and cons. We'll say that that's still under maturation as far as the design, more details to follow.
Well, you get a lot of people jumping on this project real fast, and you put in a pickleball court.
You keep hitting all of the soft areas, the soft underbelly, the pickleball court, the balance of design between the two. You're hitting us all in the soft underbelly tonight.
All right, any more questions or comments from commissioners?
No, thank you.
I think it's going to be an evolutionary project, which is, to me, creates a much better product because it has many iterations. And I think certainly from our perspective, we like to see it, I mean, it's maturing, but as it grows, and finally you got your own product there of the whole village. I think kind of goes back to, I think when you made the presentation to the planning board, Dick, back to the early mill days in what became Manchester. Originally it was Derryfield, but Samuel Blodgett, who was led a group of wealthy Boston business people, started the whole mill business, and that's where they created the village. Row houses were all the housing that was provided by Blodgett and Company, which became Emmiscag Mills. So it's they had all the self-sufficiency, the stores and all the services people need and everything are all right there and provided.
And Arthur, we're sort of a mini vision of that same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, I was reading a story on George Pullman, built railroad cars. He, started his manufacturing, and around it, he built housing for all the employees, the stores, the movie theaters, and everything. So, and he had developed a huge town, and it was all self-sufficient because he felt he didn't want his people traveling everywhere. So, of course, in those days, it wasn't as easy as it is today. So. But that was like his envision is you get all your workers, they live there, live, work, play. This was back mid-1800s. So I'm a proponent of history repeats itself anyway. So.
It's very
And that's
cyclical.
exactly what you have here, history repeating itself.
And that's where we came to the point what we're doing master planning is, gee, we can't create our old New England village, which everyone likes, the old village up in the north part of town. Which actually was created by the railroad when the railroad came through. Just like what's really downtown Derry, that was created by the railroad. and things grew up around the railroad. Londonderry was the farmers, and then Derry was the, industrialists and, business people. And that was the original settlement, is East Derry.
Interesting. All right, gentlemen.
Thank you
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did you get the feedback you were looking for from us?
We did. Thank you for your time. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for your time tonight.
And I have a sign-up sheet for you guys up here, because nobody spelled their names.
If you don't mind, if I grab those
Yeah.
back
Yes.
for the meeting tomorrow.
Yes.
And this is,
Book there, David.
during the presentation,
He needs the book back. Oh, it's up
people
there.
like to look at things. and,
Yeah, totally, that's-
and you go through it,
Yeah, exactly.
Appreciate this, guys.
I put it up there and he picked it up.
Thank you.
Just for my file.
Okay, moving along, we have other business. Does anybody have any other business tonight?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Is there any way we could propose to the town that they would leave the heat on in the building till these meetings are over?
Feeling a little chilly, John?
Damn straight.
You just gotta have more people in.
Yeah,
Some
yeah,
heated
just-
topics, that gets the temperature.
Some heated discussion going. Okay, public input. We have no further members of the public, so that leads us to adjournment. Would anybody like to motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, somebody's got a second
I'll
there.
second.
All right.
All right, moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.